I asked Oprah, I don't know if you know this, but Oprah for the last 25 something years, she has a school for girls in South Africa, and thousands of girls she teach. And so I asked her a question. I said, what do you think's the most important lesson you're teaching them? And she didn't hesitate. And she said, mindsets.
Hello, welcome to EdTech Leaders. I'm really excited about our guest today. Scott Shickler is a motivational speaker, best-selling author, co-author of The 7 Mindsets to Live Your Ultimate Life, and is the founder and CEO of 7 Mindsets. Scott, you led a 3-year, $3 million research project, right, that studied thousands of high achievers, 200,000 teenagers, is that correct? To identify key thought patterns influencing success and happiness. So, of course, everyone wants to know how to be happy and successful. What did you find?
Yeah. First of all, I didn't know it was going to be a 3-year project or require a $3 million investment. If I knew that, I probably wouldn't have done it. But we all want to be happy and successful in life. We want our kids to grow up to be happy and successful. Every educator I've ever met wants their students to grow up to be happy and successful. Yet you look at the statistics and it seems very elusive. It seems like there's a very small percentage of people that are really living a life of their dreams, living their passions, really feeling fulfilled in their relationships and in their profession. There's also a stat that says about 92% of adults who have goals every year fail to achieve them. And the average adult has the same goals on their list for like 3 years in a row. So it's not like people don't know what they want, is that we have a really challenging time achieving what we want. But you and I, Oliver, know happy and successful people. And so the question is, what are they doing differently? What do they have in common? And that's ultimately what we studied. And we studied thousands of some of the world's happiest, most successful people. We interviewed over 400 or 500 of them. I got to interview Oprah Winfrey, Richard Branson, some really cool people. And we deconstructed 200 of the most renowned books on the subject of happiness and success. And we also knew we were not the first to do this kind of research. So we folded in a $50 million study by Dr. Martin Seligman out of the University of Pennsylvania. He did a study on global happiness. So we took all of this information, folded it together. We made a pretty remarkable discovery. The true drivers of success and joy and fulfillment in life have very little to do with the skills you acquire or how far you go in school, or whether you come from a loving home or a dysfunctional home, or whether you grow up rich, poor, or middle class. The real drivers are your thought patterns. And in particular, we identified 7 mindsets. And these 7 mindsets really lead to a more fulfilling life. But the second thing that you mentioned is we assessed over 200,000 teenagers, and we found out that they inadvertently had the exact opposite mindsets, what we labeled the counter mindsets. And so here we have this pattern of people passing on what they think is good advice from one generation to the next, but the advice is getting lost in translation. And these kids with counter mindsets grow up to be adults with counter mindsets. And that was kind of the shocking part of our discovery.
Can you take me through some of these mindsets, the 7 mindsets?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. One of my favorite interviews was with Richard Branson, the billionaire founder behind all of the Virgin companies, right? And at the end of the interview, the last question was, if you could live your life over again, is there anything you would do differently? And he thought about it and he said, yeah, maybe 2 things. The first is I'd start my first company at an earlier age. I said, well, didn't you start your first company at the age of 9? And he laughed. He said, yeah, I did. I said, yeah, okay, all those wasted years, right? What's the second thing you do differently? And he said, if I could do it over again, I would dream bigger. Now, Oliver, when he said that to me, I'll be really transparent with you. It kind of kind of rubbed me the wrong way because I mean, I'm talking to a guy who owns over 400 companies, a billionaire. He owns his own private island. He scores off the charts on happiness tests. He's one of the greatest philanthropists in history, right? And he's telling me if he could do it over again, he would dream bigger. Well, I made my notes, interviewed lots of other folks, and we noticed this pattern. And really, what he was saying is, and I always like to add like a physical activity to this. Maybe you want to do this with me, and your listeners might want to do this if it's safe. Uh, raise your left or your right hand as high as you can. So staying seated or whatever, just raise it as high as you can. All right, our hands are going off the screen here. Right
Okay.
now, can you get it 1 inch higher? Staying seated, can you get it one inch? How about 2 inches? Right, of course, two. Right, there we
Okay.
go. So I've asked probably over 100,000 people to do this. Everybody can get their hand 1 inch higher. But think about what I asked. I asked you initially, raise your hand as high as you can. And then I said, can you get it 1 inch higher, 2 inches higher? And almost everybody does. And that's because we don't really understand our true potential. We don't really understand how good we can be. There are things going on in our brain that don't allow us to be our very, very best for good reasons. And so we took what Branson said and we labeled that the first mindset. And the first mindset we call everything is possible. The everything is possible mindset, it's not like a law of nature where it says 100-year-old woman is going to win the gold medal in the 50-meter dash or something. That's not what it is. It's a mindset that says you can stretch yourself. Branson, what he was saying was, now that he's lived X number of years and had all these experiences as an entrepreneur, successes, failures, he understands that he should stretch his mind. He should think a little bigger. And that's the everything is possible mindset. And when he talks about starting at an earlier age, he's saying, wow, if I started even earlier, if I could embrace this kind of thinking at a younger age, then imagine the possibilities. It was his comments that really inspired me to think, I wonder, could we teach the 7 mindsets to kids? Could we, in a sense, flip the switch from negative thinking, counter mindsets to the positive 7? And if we could, would it matter? And I'll fast forward and I'll tell you today, we have 7 mindsets programs in K through 12 school districts all over the nation. And we're in 48 states. We have over 1.5 million students from preschool through 12th grade learning the 7 mindsets in urban, rural, suburban, virtual school districts. And the results really are phenomenal.
So that's the first one. I'm not trying to give away all of your knowledge for free here. Could you take me through the other 6 just briefly so we have
Sure.
the idea?
And I'll tell you what, let's give a link to your listeners. If they want to go to 7mindsets.com, like 7, the numeral 7 and the word mindsets.com/free. If they put in their information, let's give them a quick free download to a little mini guide that has all the 7 mindsets and a little way of activating them in their life. But I'll give you a quick summary. So the second mindset is what we call passion first. And the idea is a lot of us go through life thinking extrinsically. When you're younger and you're trying to figure out where should you go to school? It's not uncommon for parents, counselors to talk about, well, where are the trends? How can you align skill development with career opportunities, right? That's extrinsic thinking. It makes rational sense, which is why people do it. But when we interviewed people, the highest achievers, they gave us a completely different approach, a different answer. They would say things like, well, if every job paid the same, what job would you choose? If you could start any business, what business would give you real joy and passion? And do those things. That forces you to go intrinsically. And so that's why we labeled the mindset passion first. as a way to help people like find what really matters to them, because life is hard, business is hard, any career you have is hard, relationships are hard. What allows you to stay present and to act and adjust is when you can connect what you're doing to things that really matter to you. So that's the second mindset. The third mindset is what we call we are connected, and it's a reminder that to achieve great things, we need to work with others and for others and through others. And frankly, if you can achieve your dreams alone, you're probably not dreaming big enough. Go back to mindset number
Mm.
one and stretch 1 or 2 inches higher. So it's about looking for ways to inspire one another, empower each other, find the synergies in all relationships. That's the we are connected mindset. The fourth one is 100% accountable. Really understanding that you and only you, right? Me, everyone, we own our own happiness and success. There are lots of things we can't control. We can't control the weather. We can't control the economy. You can't control what somebody else says or does. You can only control how you react. You can only control the actions that you take. And really embracing that mindset, which can be really hard, can also be truly freeing. When I wrote the Seven Mindsets book, my oldest son was a teenager, and he read it, and he read that mindset, and he said, "Dad, I don't know. I think you got that one wrong." He goes, "I don't know if I can be 100% accountable." I said, "I think I can be 70% accountable." And he went out like a typical teenager, and he made a T-shirt at the mall, and he came walking around 70% accountable. Yeah, his point was, I think some of my challenges in life, Dad, are going to come from you. Maybe 10% from you, 10% from mom, 10% from my little brother. I get it. It's a challenging mindset to embrace, but it's liberating also at the same time. The next one, Oliver, is attitude of gratitude. And there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. There's a lot of uncertainty in business, and that uncertainty can cause stress. It can cause anxiety. It could paralyze us from taking action. And the one of the fastest things we can do when faced with this kind of uncertainty is to get grounded in gratitude, to literally express what we're grateful for right now. A lot of us are goal oriented, and we'll get happy when we achieve something. You have to enjoy the journey. You have to be grateful for what you have, for who you are today. That's the first part of attitude of gratitude. A lot of people know this. Um, it's hard to practice, and I'll give you an example of what trips us up. I love making lists. I don't know about you, but I make lists on paper. I make lists on my in Outlook, to-do list. I just love it. I'm one of these people that maybe go a little overboard. Like,
Mhm.
somehow, if I've achieved something that wasn't on my list,
You'll
the
add it
list
to the list and cross it
the
off.
li- to cross it off. I love that. Like right away. I love that. But if you think about it, where does the mind go right after you cross something off the list?
To the next item.
What's next, right?
Yeah.
So unintentionally, we're flooding ourselves with what we don't have, what we haven't yet accomplished. That's the opposite of the attitude of gratitude mindset. Get grounded, practice gratitude on a daily basis. And then the deeper part of that mindset is, even when things don't happen the way you wish, when there's conflict, when there's disappointment, even, when there's trauma or tragedy, things we wouldn't wish on anyone else. The people that really embrace this mindset, they look for the upside. They look for and we're human. So you can't just, be walking around with like, trying to just be positive, toxic positivity. That's not what I'm talking about. But people who look for the lessons, who look for upside, they suffer for shorter periods of time. And you can ask questions like, I wonder what might ultimately come of this. I look forward to understanding how this experience might ultimately help me grow. People who do that, you put your brain on a different task. You put your brain on looking for the upside. And so that's the power of that particular mindset. The second to last mindset is what we call live to give. And the live to give mindset, it's a lot deeper than just being charitable. It's literally about trying to connect your um, your vocation, right, to a calling. It's how do you, so it's not like a penny for peace or just taking a percentage of your profits and putting it towards a cause. It's how can you connect what you're doing every day? How can you redefine success so it's significance? So what we're doing matters. And the people who can do that, these are the people who always say, well, I never worked a day in my life. Yeah, they're working really hard, but they're inspired and motivated by something else, by something a little more meaningful. And then the last mindset is what we call the time is now. And the time is now has two meanings to it. One, it's to be present, okay, to enjoy the now. How often do you go outside and you're walking, but you don't even hear the birds? So what can you do to really be present? And then you have to act. You have to take action. And a lot of people wait for things to really line up. There's a lot of us have a we're perfectionists, or we just want to get it right, and we think that success looks like that straight line A to B, but success is messy. And if people could embrace progress over perfection, they'll be leaning into that time is now mindset.
Hmm.
Get get started. So
Let's get started.
that's 3 years in I don't know how many minutes, but hopefully that helps.
That's great. And they're interconnected. You see, like if you're not a perfectionist and you take action and something goes wrong, well, you could be grateful that you can grow from it.
Absolutely, they are all connected. But so a lot of people are familiar with the IQ test. Some people are familiar with an EQ, like your emotional quotient. But there's really no connection to how smart you are and how and the kind of relationships you have or your success in business. So we developed something called the MQ, and we it's in beta form right now. And if any of your listeners go and they get the free Seven Mindsets booklet, they can download it. But we'll let them know, and they can be part of our early beta group, and they can take a 15-minute MQ test. They answer 70 questions, and we will show them their MQ score, and we'll break it down
Oh,
compared to each of the seven mindsets. And you could see how your mindsets compared to Richard Branson's, to Oprah Winfrey's, to famous Olympic athletes, high achievers in all fields. And once we developed this, we said, well, now what? So let's say what your strongest mindsets are or the areas for greatest improvement. Now what? So we developed something called MyMQ, which is a platform, and it comes on your iPhone or your Android. And it's something you can do in just a few minutes a day to strengthen your mindset so you can grow and develop your mindset. And we built a MyMQ coach. It's an AI coach that people can ask questions to. It's like getting answers 24/7 from the conglomerate of all the greatest minds that we studied.
oh, that's great. You can get Oprah whispering in one ear and Richard Branson in the other.
Right.
Speaking of Oprah and Richard Branson, how do they compare?
Uh, those are two people that actually, not everyone that we interviewed had all seven mindsets, but those are two that actually do. When I interviewed Oprah, first we studied her, and then when I interviewed her, it was kind of cool. I said, Oprah, you actually have all seven, and I've got the book. And she's like, I'm in the book. I'm in the book. I said, yes, you made the book. And she said, where am I in the book? And I'm like, I think you're, I don't know, page 48, 49. I opened it up, and it was kind of cool. She took the book and she read her quote from the book out loud. It was a little surreal to hear her say that. Um, but no, they score off the charts. Those two. I asked Oprah. I don't know if you know this, but Oprah for the last 25 something years, she has a school for girls in South Africa, and thousands of girls she teach. And so I asked her a question. I said, what do you think's the most important lesson you're teaching them? And she didn't hesitate. And she said, mindsets. I
Mm.
said, mindsets? She said, mindsets. I said, over everything? She said, mindsets over everything. And I said, I agree with you, but I don't think it's generic mindset. The word mindset has become overused in a lot of ways. I said, Oprah, I actually think it's the 7 mindsets. It's these 7 mindsets. And that's what we got, we dug in pretty deep on them.
Cool. Did she agree with you? Did she have some to add or
Yeah, she did.
um
I spent 3 hours with her,
yeah,
and she gave me stories on each one of them, a and, yeah, I haven't met anyone that kind of, that really refutes these mindsets,
yeah,
uh, what and to be really clear, you know, we didn't invent them, we labeled them. So,
yeah,
we found these thought patterns, and then we wanted to create a language that would allow us to share and teach them to kids. We just had we've been doing this now for about 15 years, and we've trained and taught over 5 million students, and we've now brought the program into companies. So entrepreneurs and managers and business leaders can bring the 7 mindsets to their teams and see the same results. But we just had a study that was published in June of this year where they studied 58,000 students who learned the 7 mindsets. And they found, compared to all the other programs that these kids were learning, they found the kids who learned the 7 mindsets, they came to school more often. They felt safer at school. They had better relationships with their peers and their teachers. We found that bad behavior decreased. And surprisingly, even their English and math scores improved. So when you flip the switch and you go from the negative or the counter mindset to a positive mindset, you don't have to learn new skills, but all the skills you've already learned kind of flourish, and people can thrive. So it's pretty interesting.
let's talk about teenagers for a minute. You said they have so many of them have these counter mindsets.
Hmm.
Why do you think that is? And tell us about the process of flipping that switch.
Yeah, great question. So first of all, it's been estimated that the average person, whether you're a teenager or you're an adult, has about 60,000 negative thoughts that go through your mind every single day. They're called automatic negative thoughts, and we teach them to kids. We call them ants. We say everybody's got ants in their brain. They go, what? You go, no, automatic negative thoughts. The reason we have automatic negative thoughts is to keep us alive as a species. It's a good thing that our brain is constantly scanning for risk and danger, right? But when this goes unchecked, it can create chronic stress. It can limit our potential. And so becoming aware that we have these thoughts, and that, by the way, these 60,000 thoughts, like 80% of these thoughts are negative thoughts, and like 95% repeat over and over again. So most of us have a handful of themes. And just to give you an example, I'll be vulnerable and share something personal. Every time I look in a mirror, my brain wants to find the flaws. My brain was say, "Oh, your clothes are getting tighter. Oh, you got a blemish. Oh, like the brain wants to scan for the negative stuff, right? Some people, when they go, to the mailbox, they're like, "Oh, I hope there's not a bill in that mailbox," right?
Mhm.
Like we all have things that trigger negative patterns, negative thoughts, things that are often like we're not good enough. There are little sayings that parents pass on to their kids, like money doesn't grow on
Trees.
trees, right? Curiosity killed the,
Cat.
right? Don't make the same mistake twice, right?
Jeez.
So, like, we have these little sayings and they get lost in translation because, what curiosity killed the cat. What are we trying to say? Don't be curious. Tell
Mm.
that to any entrepreneur, anyone who's ever created anything, any inventor. Don't make the same mistake twice implies mistakes are bad. Right? You show me an adult who hasn't made any mistakes, I'll show you an adult who hasn't achieved much in their life. Mistakes are an integral part of success. Right? Money doesn't grow on trees. 200,000 teenagers told us that what that means to them, I can translate it into one word: scarcity. Like there's not enough to go around. Well, I said that to my kids when they were younger. I wasn't trying to tell them, I wasn't trying to teach them that there's scarcity in the world. I was trying to say, hey, you want something? Work for it, you know,
Right.
right? Well, they got lost in translation. So, what do we do about that? That's the second part of your question. How do we flip the switch? One, become aware. The great thing about mindset work is you know how you're feeling. Now you might share it with others, other people might see on your face, but when you start to pay attention to the ants, start to pay attention to the themes in your life. When something doesn't make you feel good, think about what it is. Think of it as a pattern. Ants at a picnic don't like a light to be shined on them. They freeze. So you want to make your ants freeze. So once you start noticing a negative thought, just by noticing it, you're shining a light and you're freezing. Uh, Now, your brain can't hold two thoughts at the exact same time. Multitasking is a fallacy. It's not true. Your brain just does things fast, one after the
Right.
next. So if you have a negative thought, you can literally flip the switch. Now,
Mm.
professional athletes do this. Professional athletes have fewer thoughts than the average person. And it's not because they're less intelligent, it's because they know how to flip the switch. If you ever see a professional athlete, take the game winning shot at the end and miss, the reason they can get on the court the next night and do it again is because they know how to flip the switch. They practice techniques. By the way, we share a lot of these techniques on the MyMQ platform.
Mm. Yeah, you see it. I'm a tennis player. You really see the difference between the players who get upset and get emotional and they lose, they just go out of control, and the ones who are able to take that and either focus it or just put it away. Like there are two ways that those tennis players can use it positively. Sometimes they use it to energize themselves, and sometimes they just quickly shut it down. Um, and then you see players who may even be going well, and then they start going downhill in a match and just lose it, or they get
Absolutely.
angry and they lose it.
It's all mindset work. It it
Yeah.
it really is all mindset work. When my youngest was 9 and he was playing baseball, little league, I went to one of his games. He was at third base, and somebody hit the ball to him, and he bent down to pick it up, and the ball went under his glove, right between his legs, right, and he's
Hmm.
kicking the dirt. He's hitting his mitt. Uh, 2 innings later, the same exact thing happened. Somebody hits the ball to him. He bends down, goes under his glove, right between his legs. All right. So after the game, he says, "Hey, Dad, did you see those two plays where the ball came to me?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Isn't that cool? I think I'm getting taller." It's all perspective, and we all have the ability to flip the switch and change our mindset. It'll change how we feel, and it'll change how we perform.
In the corporate world, do you see similar patterns with teenagers, or is it a little different? What do you see in the corporate world when you go into a company?
Yeah. So my company, the Seven Mindsets Company, we have about 60. We don't even call them employees; we call them empowerees at our company. Everything is all about
Mm.
all about mindset, and we practice the seven mindsets in our company. We talk about them, we label them, we use them in our different departments. And over the last few years, I've been speaking at different company events, other companies, and helping them apply the seven mindsets. And it, we're all just like kids grown up. Or, we have the mindset of these counter mindsets, and this stuff works in the adult world as well. So uh, we help companies and we help adults apply these same mindsets. It's the same thing. It's just the problems and the challenges of adulthood are a little different than for kids.
Hmm, that's cool. So, what are your let's talk about some of your goals, and let's talk about how you have marketed, in the marketing side, your company both in schools and to corporations, and now you have the app coming.
Mhm.
What have you done to scale? And you've had many companies before, so this isn't your first rodeo. What have you done that works?
Yeah. So the Wall Street Journal called me a serial entrepreneur. When my kids heard that, they thought it was like
Serial
serial.
killer.
Right. Uh, but I have had I've been fortunate. I've had success in several different industries. I've probably done about 20 M&A deals, and um, I, but my strength is in education, technology, education companies, primarily for younger people. But I also, deliver education solutions to companies as well. What our goals are right now, or we're probably reaching about 1.5 million students a week through the 7 mindsets. And over the next few years, I want to get that up to 5 million students a week. And we're doing that through expansion in other K through 12 school districts. So that's kind of on the education, on the K-12 education side. The next thing that we are doing is we are expanding outside of K-12 and bringing this more into companies. And I want to connect the dots. The 7 mindsets is a language. It's like your ABCs. You don't just learn your ABCs once and then say, I got it. No, you learn them. And as you get older, you use them, right? You start to form sentences, and then you write paragraphs, and then you're performing poetry, and right, you're leading companies with the ABCs. So we're using the 7 mindsets as a framework for the classroom, to the living room, to the break room, and the boardroom. And the connect the dots moment for me is, since we've been teaching kids this for 15 years, some of the kids are now in their 30s, and
Mm.
we're hiring them. I've told my company, if young people know the 7 mindsets, if they've learned and practiced the 7 mindsets, they go to the top of our list when we're hiring. We have so many interns, paid internships, that we're hiring these young people from all over the world. And my connect the dots are that companies are going to want to, if they start practicing these mindsets, they're going to want to start hiring young people who understand these mindsets. And so what I'm looking to do is I'm creating, like, for our book, it's a one-to-one program. When people buy our 7 mindsets book, we give a book away to a kid or an educator. We're building that into our marketing for the 7 mindsets at work. We have 7 mindsets at school. We're moving to 7 mindsets at home and 7 mindsets at work. And we're building in these one-for-one models so that when a company brings it into for their team, they're also now going to be supporting the program at the school level.
That's great.
And when the company brings it into their employee base, we're going to give them tools so that those employees can share it with their kids and their family at home, their significant and others at home. So I'd like to create this full ecosystem where everybody is using the 7 mindsets framework to basically have better relationships and navigate and live their best life.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. For those interested, www.7mindsets.com. But don't forget, 7mindsets.com/free. We'll put the link below and you can get the free download.
Yeah. Get the free download, learn all the 7 mindsets, learn 4 little ways you can immediately start applying them in your life or your business. And then we'll get you on a list, and we'll give them an opportunity for free to also, when we open up the next round of beta testing, we'll let your listeners take the MQ. They can see where they are and even start working with my MQ. And we're happy to do that for free for them, and maybe they can give us some feedback so we can make it better for everybody else in the world.
Great. Thank you so much. Scott Shickler. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Oliver.